process. Polishing is mainly intended to increase the gloss and smoothness of the coating surface and remove minor post-spray defects from the coating surface. Surface of resprayed panel and original surface may be different or have different defects like dust spots, particles, and sagging. Therefore, spray-repaired panels must be polished. Reasonable application of polishing technologies can solve these defects. In this video, we will explain the basic sequence of the standard process for polishing operations. The coating must be thoroughly dried before the surface is polished. Different paints require different drying time and temperature. Please follow the instructions given by the paint manufacturer. Evaluate the drying condition. Push with your finger the surface to determine whether or not the coating can be polished. Apply sufficient pressure to the surface until the fingertips are whitened. If this action leaves no fingerprints on the surface is thoroughly dried and can be polished. If any fingerprints are left over on the surface, repeat the drying procedures. Polishing environment. Polishing shall be done in a peripherally well-lit workshop free of direct sunlight. If the lighting is poor, check the coating surface with the aid of reflection of the fluorescent lamps. Evaluation Surface Defect 1. Check for the presence and positions of particles and runs. If you repair immediately any particles or runs existing on the coating, you might neglect some existing defects. Therefore, mark first some particles or runs you found. If the zone of runs is too large and can be hardily repaired, you have to repaint the surface, which is the maximum area to be corrected by polishing. Evaluation Surface Defect 2. Check whether or not the surface texture is the same as the texture of the old coating, and the difference between the old and the old coatings can be checked using the fluorescence reflection. If the coating bumps are relatively low or the interval between bumps is too narrow, the texture cannot be corrected by polishing. The texture can be adjusted if heights of the bumps differ considerably, and polishing wax can be directly used if the heights of the bumps differ slightly. Gently push a spot trimming scraper on a thoroughly dried coating surfaces to cut off the portion that is higher than the coating surface. If it is not dried thoroughly, the coating may peel off. Next, use a spot grinder affixed with #P1500 sanding paper to grind the leftover traces. It can also be ground by manually grinding using #P1500 sanding paper. Sagging zones occurring on the coating surface may be corrected and fully ground with spot trimming scraper and blade, and the surface may be ground using double-action grinder and #2000 sanding paper. Check the texture frequently during grinding. Stop grinding before the texture of the coating conforms to the old coating. Shade adjacent panels and decoration to avoid damages. Coating in that position is too thin due to excessive polishing. It is also necessary to prevent the polishing agent from adhering to the gap in the panel. Otherwise, it can be hardly eliminated. Clean the surface with clean rag to remove all dust and affix appropriate tape. Rough polishing. The purpose of rough polishing is to correct the particles and runs and remove the grinding traces left over by texture adjustment. Apply rough polishing wax to the polishing surface of polishing pad, and restrict the rotating speed of polishing machine to 1,200 to 2,000 revolutions per minute. For initial polishing, adjust down the rotating speed appropriately, and adjust up the rotating speed once the coating shows luster. Stop polishing the surface once the traces left over by grinding are eliminated. When rough polishing is over, wipe the coating surface with fine fiber cloth and check it for polishing effect. With the aid of degreasing agent, it is convenient to check whether or not there are any polishing defects. Rough polishing. The shapes of the body panels are complicated, so the zone of primary polishing cannot be generalized. Too large primary polishing zone may cause difficulty in controlling the polishing machine. Move the polishing machine in such a way that its new grinding zone overlaps the previous one by 2/3. Moving path of the polishing machine shall form a hashtag type pattern. If the area of zone to be polished is too big, it can be divided into multiple parts, 50 times 50 centimeters, to be polished sequentially. A reasonable moving speed shall be maintained during polishing. If the polishing wheel moves too fast, the cutting output may get unstable. Replace or clean the polishing pad once it gets dirty. Fine polishing. After rough wax treatment, there are still some polishing traces and fine scratches on the coating surface. To obtain more smooth and bright coating surfaces, you have to perform fine polishing. Install the black sponge pad for fine polishing onto the polishing machine, and apply an appropriate amount of superfine polishing wax onto the sponge pad. Set the polishing machine speed to 1,400 to 2,000 RPM and conduct medium pressure polishing to remove the ring traces and improve the gloss of the coating surfaces. Stop polishing once the surface shows glossy. The entire panel achieves the desired texture effect and the process is over. Transition zone polishing at splices. Eliminate all roughness from the transition zone at the color splices. Install sponge wheel onto the polishing machine and apply polishing wax onto the polishing surface of sponge wheel. To polish the boundary between the old and new coatings, tilt the polishing machine and perform polishing from the new coating to the old coating. Move the polishing machine in one direction during polishing operation, namely the new coating to the old coating. Stop grinding the surface once the roughness is eliminated. Remove the polishing traces left over by previous procedures and increase the surface brightness. Apply superfine polishing wax onto the polishing surface of sponge pad and stop polishing once the surface shows uniform gloss. During polishing, it is necessary to avoid coating film faults in the transition zones. Body cleaning. The polishing agent splashed on the panel during polishing will swell and raise the coating surface, so it shall be removed once polishing is over. Use a soft rag to wipe off the dust and foreign materials adhering to the surface of the surrounding area, and check and verify that no polishing traces or sanding paper traces are left over on the coating texture and the old coating. In the end, through the introduction and study of the above contents, we hope that you can master the standard polishing process and operation skills and can skillfully apply and improve them in practices.